My name is Elizabeth Duncan. Today is August 24th, 2017. I'm a student in the Bachelor of Arts program with College for America at Southern New Hampshire University, and I am conducting this interview as part of my academic work. With your consent, I will record this interview and use the information in a street interview for Govt and You I am working on for the Contribute to Society project. The interview will be used to create street interviews for Govt and You and submitted to College for America so that my project can be evaluated. This recording will be solely used for this purpose. The interview information will be temporarily stored in the College for America online evaluation system, to which only the evaluator and College for America staff will have access. Do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Please read this statement for me.
I, Christina Duncan, give my informed consent to participate in this interview to be recorded and used as part of the student's academic work.
Thank you. My first question, what are the three branches of government?
I believe the three branches of government are the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the executive branch.
What does each branch do?
The legislative branch writes the laws. The judicial branch interprets the laws that they write, and then the executive branch enforces enforces the laws.
Okay. Democrats and Republicans are the two major parties. Can you name a third party?
The Libertarian Party.
And can you tell me what is the basic process by which a bill becomes law?
First, the bill starts out in the House of Representatives, and then it is passed on to the Senate, and then from there it ends up with the president, who can veto it or not.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, my next street to interview. My name is Elizabeth Duncan. I'm a student in the Bachelor of Arts program with College for America at Southern New Hampshire University, and I'm conducting this interview as part of my academic work. With your consent, I will record this interview and use this information in a street interview for Govt and You deliverable I am working on for Contribute to Society project. The interview will be used to create a street interview for Govt and You and submitted to College for America so that my project can be evaluated. This recording will be solely used for this purpose. The interview information will be temporarily stored in the College for America online evaluation system, to which only the evaluator and College for America staff will have access. Do you have any questions?
I do not.
Please read this statement.
I, Tim Duncan, give my informed consent to participate in this interview to be recorded and used as part of the student's academic work.
Thank you. My first question, what are the three basic branches of government?
The three branches of government are the executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch.
Thank you. What does each branch of government do?
The executive branch consists of the President of the United States and actually enforces the laws. They also command the military and protect the Constitution. The legislative branch is, I believe, the House and Senate. They actually introduce and pass the laws. And then the judicial branch actually interprets and also enforces laws.
Thank you. Democrats and Republicans are the two major parties. Can you name a third party?
Tea Party?
Thank you. What is the basic process by which a bill becomes a law?
Well, first it has to be introduced in the House of Representatives, where it comes to a vote. If it is moved to the Senate, if it comes a majority, it moves to the Senate, then the Senate has to vote on it by majority. And if it passes the Senate, then of course the President has the final call. He has veto power.
Great. That's all I have for this street interview. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Okay, now I will review some of the information that I've learned in respect to this particular project. First, I'd like to cover the three branches of government and what role each one of them plays. The executive branch, which is the office of the president, carries out federal laws, commands armed forces, and directs national defense and foreign policy. Next, the legislative branch, which consists of Congress, Senate, and the House of Representatives, they make and pass the laws. The House of Representatives originates spending bills, and the Senate has the power to impeach officials. The judicial branch, which is all of the various branches from the lower courts to the Supreme Court, have the job of interpreting the Constitution, reviewing laws, and making decisions on cases such as appealed cases. Next, let's talk about what does each branch of government do, how they are connected, and how do they regulate one another. Well, the legislative branch they make the laws. Congress, Senate, and the House all have roles in this. No one entity can make them alone. The judicial makes rulings on laws at the local, state, and Supreme Court level, and all of them play a role. Local and state rulings can be appealed to the Supreme Court. Next, the executive branch, which is the office of the president, as I shared a moment ago, carries out the laws, and he is the chief law enforcement officer and can also veto laws. So, as I have created this presentation, which is an illustration of what it is that I just covered, this really shows you how each one of them has a system of checks and balances that requires a working partnership. Let's talk a little bit more about the checks and balances. So basically, each one of them cannot function without the assistance of the other two. So the legislative branch must approve judge appointments. They may investigate actions of the president, and they must approve foreign treaties. The judicial branch judges cannot be fired by the president. So essentially they cannot be fired by the executive branch. The Supreme Court judges can rule that a presidential action or law is unconstitutional. They can declare a law unconstitutional that is passed in the legislative branch. And the executive branch, which is the president, can appoint federal judges, thus the judicial branch cannot appoint their own judges, and they do need the president. But the president can veto the laws that the legislative branch makes, and he can also make foreign treaties. So really, this is truly a good example or an illustration of the checks and balances. If you think about it and you look at how each one of them relies upon one another, let's just really review this one more time. The executive branch, the president can veto laws that Congress wants to pass. The president can make foreign treaties. The legislative branch must approve appointed judges, can impeach powers over federal officers, and may propose amendments to overturn judicial decisions. And the judicial branch cannot be fired, as I said a moment ago, by the president, and may rule on actions that they believe are unconstitutional. So, as you can see, no one entity or even two entities in respect to the branches of government can function without the other. Now, let's move on to some other questions. Let's talk about Democrats and Republicans and the fact that they're the major two parties. And the third party that I would name would be the Green Party or Libertarians, as I believe my street interviewees did. So let's talk about how the two-party system started. There was one group of people, the Federalists, that objected to the new Constitution, and another group of people, the Anti-Federalists, or the Democrat-Republicans, that objected to the new powerful government. So these two groups of people made up the first two political parties in the history of the United States. John Adams was a Federalist and was elected president. Alexander Hamilton was also a Federalist and had great ideas on how to pay off debt and strengthen the economy. They both were running successfully and really making the country a better place, but Adams lost the next election of 1800 and Alexander Hamilton died. And really after that, the Federalist Party never recovered. One of the greatest accomplishments of the Federalists was that the Republican government survived and became the root of the political parties in the U.S. In 1792, Jefferson and Madison founded the Democratic-Republican Party, and eventually the two camps, which essentially was bankers and industrialists versus farmers and other laboring positions, split into two groups. Thus, today known as the Democratic or Liberal Party, and Republicans known as the Conservative Party. What impact do third parties have on national politics? Well, in recent elections, they've had a pretty big impact. There was a gentleman by the name of Ross Perot that ran as a third party in a recent presidential election and took many votes from those that would typically vote Democratic or Republican, but were not happy with either of the candidates, thus making it more difficult then for the Democrats and Republicans to achieve, i.e. their winning vote. So third parties can play a major role if they become popular with the public. So now let's talk a moment about how a bill becomes a law. There are some specific terms: sponsors, committees, debate, and voting. Let's talk about what each one of those means. A sponsor is the first person to present a bill for consideration, and only a member of Congress can introduce a bill. The committee is a group of members, for example, in the Senate, that gathers and evaluates bills and makes recommendations to the Senate on bills considered for legislation. Debate is the opportunity for members of the House of Representatives and Senate to speak in support or against a bill before it's voted upon. And last but certainly not least is voting. This is the last step in the process. This is where the bill either passes and becomes a law or fails. Let me show you an illustration of exactly what it is that I just shared. Here is an illustration of how a bill becomes a law. I spoke to this a moment ago. A bill is either presented by any one of these. It then goes into being introduced into legislation, next into the committees, and this is all on the House of Representatives side. It's put on the calendar, it's debated and amended, then goes to budget and engrossment, and then the introducing of the legislation. Next, we move to the Senate side. Goes into committee work, it's debated and amended, then it goes into enrollment, and then final approval, publication, and then law. So this is exactly what it is that I just spoke to in respect to the process of how a bill becomes a law. My name is Elizabeth Duncan. This is my street interview and presentation on government. Thank you.